I am being watched. Welcome everyone to Mailfuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Person of Interest, Season 2, Episode 20. It's called In Extremis. So spoilers for the episode, and I can't believe we're at episode 20 already. 2 left of the season, and given the end of this episode, it kind of feels like we're maybe getting into like a 2-part finale. And I say that because the cliffhanger at the end of this felt like, okay, we're going into a big story that the ending of this one really sets up. So, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So this one is a big episode for Fusco. And then kind of by extension, a little bit of Carter as well. A lot less Finch than normal. And I think that's because Fusco's plotline took up so much more time. The flashbacks in this episode of Fusco, he's got a whole thing going on, and it does take up a lot of the time. And an interesting, person of interest here as well. And I recognize the actor, this doctor character. He was a lawyer at one of the firms on Better Call Saul, which came after this, of course. No, not by much. This was like, what, 2013 this aired? So, yeah, only a couple of years later that show started, but still, I recognized him instantly. I was like, oh, wow, it's this guy. And what's interesting about that is that he is already dead, effectively. He is poisoned at like a sort of gala. He's getting presented with this award for being some great surgeon, and he's given this award, and quite quickly gets a nosebleed, and they become concerned. And I think one of the reasons why I like this plot is not just because of what it does for the rest of the episode, which I'm about to get into, but it's also the idea that whenever they get a person and they go to like a function or a gathering or something where the first contact is made, and Reese is being a waiter, or he's being someone there to blend in, is there's always the sort of idea of like, oh, anyone in this crowd could be the killer. What if they strike during the party? And they almost never do, because it's always the first time we've met the person, so it's more about just introducing the character. I kind of like that for once. No, it did happen here, and he's basically already been poisoned, and he's doomed. He's dead in about a day. So for the rest of this episode, there's no saving him. He's already dead. He's gone. The best they can do is help him get some justice for what's happened to him and figure out why it happened and stop whoever did it from ever doing it again. That's like all they can do. And it actually ties in thematically quite well with the Fusco storyline a little bit, which I'll get into. But I enjoyed this. It had the doctor trying to rekindle his relationship with his daughter and sort of trying to apologize for mistakes he believes he's made. And they kind of present a character that in his fairly limited screen time does acknowledge that he has done some bad things. It's brought up that his wife left him because he cheated on her, and he admits that was a mistake. But it really sets up this idea of a thoughtful older guy who's like, okay, I've done some bad things, I've done some good things, but at the very least, I don't deserve to be murdered for the mistakes I've made. And that's pretty much how it plays out. I don't have too much to say about the actual scenes that happen with him. More for the most part, it's they go to like the so part of the plot is that he mentioned in like a racquetball game to someone who's a trader that this experimental drug that's on trial is going to get like shot down, and this guy went and bet against it. Therefore, there's insider trading. Therefore, it's been investigated, and that is seemingly why he's being murdered, is because he's the weak link that will prove that it's happened. So that's why it's going down. And there's a little bit early on where he actually thinks Reese is the killer because he recognizes him from the party, which also felt like something that should happen more almost, right? This idea that Reese is kind of around as a sort of just person in the background as far as the perpetrator slash victim is concerned. He's someone that they might notice, and then later on when he shows up more directly to help, they go, hey, you were there, you were that waiter. You must be the one who did this to me. I kind of appreciated that reaction. So there's a couple of little things like that I like about this episode. But they go to the guy he talked to that led to the insider trading and question him and get a location for the head of the trading company that is possibly ordered the hit on him. And that's what happens. They travel there and they actually kill him. They give him the same poison that he had, which is a little bit darker. Reese typically doesn't kill people in cold blood. But maybe because the murder actually has already happened, he's feeling a little bit colder about that today. But either way, it played for a good moment. The reveal that he was also sick, especially since when the doctor confronts this guy, this rich asshole, who's worth $9 billion, when he confronts him and says, "Hey, you don't even recognize me. I'm the guy you murdered," and kind of like reveals who he is, this billionaire barely reacts. He does not give a shit. He is the epitome of like the 1%er who just does not care about all the evil things that he's doing. So by the time his nose starts bleeding, you realize that they've given him the same radiation sickness that the doctor got. You're like, honestly, go for it. Like, I'm kind of on board with it. And the reason why I think this works really well with the Fusco plotline in this episode is because a big part of this Fusco plotline, where he is now being investigated for the murder of Stills because the other cop that mainly worked with him and Stills back in the day is now talking about him and is like made a deal and is ratting him out, whatever. When this is all going down and, internal affairs is coming down to question him, taking his badge, taking his gun, and it's all in front of Carter, and Carter's getting concerned, the real thing that comes up here is that Carter's presented with this dilemma of whether or not she should get involved and try and help Fusco. She tries to talk to him, and he even throws it in her face because he tried to confess his sins before and she shot him down. That happened earlier in the season. A big part of this is this idea that Fusco has done some bad things, but he's also now done some good things, and he's kind of improving himself over the last year and a half. And it's very easy to relate that to the Doctor character in a lot of ways. But the Doctor character, he's definitely going to die, right? He's definitely going to, they've already lost him, they can't do anything about it. And Reese is given all his time to that. Whereas Fusco, he's going to go down for something that he doesn't deserve to go down for, even though Fusco himself does admit he kind of deserves it in general for other things he's done in the past. And we see that in the flashbacks, the examples that he's kind of talking about to an extent. That at first he was just asked to come in and clean up the crime scenes because he's homicide and he'd know how to make it look like it was a legit self-defense shooting by the cop or whatever. And then eventually he had to take a shot at someone. He didn't plan to. It was it was like a defense thing, but now he's kind of taking a shot at one of these drug dealers, and his buddy Stills is putting money in his pocket. He's kind of in it now, right? So that's kind of how the flashbacks play out. This idea that he doesn't necessarily deserve to pay a price necessarily that is going to be the rest of his life potentially, or his career at least, for the things that he kind of made mistakes. He's made mistakes in the past. Both plot lines are about making mistakes and accepting that you made mistakes, but you've still done good and can still do good. And this whole show, I've been saying it since pretty much episode 1, is about some idea of redemption and finding your purpose, right? That's what so many of the characters in this show are doing. And I think that ties in with that. And then the other thing that I really like about this Fusco plotline, particularly with the Carter element of it, is the Beecher plot. I said last episode or two that, his ending was pretty good and well handled, but the actual bulk of the relationship was just kind of so-so, right? But by this show's standards, only so-so. I think the fruit, right, was not only how they handled his ending, but now the aftermath of that plotline, I actually think is quite good, because it justified why Carter kind of has changed her mind. Because, like I said, Fusco throws it back in her face. I tried to confess my sins to you. And Carter said to him, look, if you ever have to deal with the things you did when you were a dirty cop, I'm not going to have your back. I don't even want to hear about what you did. But Carter comes in early on in this episode and says, okay, talk to me, Fusco. I want to hear about it now. And immediately all I could think was, this is because she refused to talk to Beecher. She refused to talk to him, to listen to him. She just wrote him off as soon as there was a whiff that there was something wrong with him. And he ended up dead. And she found out just before he died that he was actually a pretty okay guy, right? Again, maybe some mistakes, but ultimately not this evil asshole that she maybe thought he was. And she had wrote him off so much, and it inadvertently contributed to his death, right? And I'm not saying she's responsible for his death. I just mean that she would feel that way, that if she had listened to him, maybe that wouldn't have went down the way it did, and maybe he'd still be here. You know, the episode even starts with his funeral. In fact, it even intercuts the funeral speech with the speech the doctor's giving, because they're both quoting Plato. I don't think I didn't notice that. So, really good stuff. I really like this idea that that entire plotline with Beecher now has this purpose. And I always talk about this when characters are involved in the writing of characters, is that there should always be things motivating what a character's next decision is, that makes sense, that feels rewarding for what's came before. And the idea that she's now being faced with Fusco being accused of things, she asks Finch to pair her phone with Fusco's. Like, she's like, hey, how do you do that? I need to listen to this. And sure enough, she's listening to this entire interrogation from Internal Affairs. She's hearing all this dirty laundry and all the things that he's been accused of. And she even says at one point, she's talking to Reese and is like, hey, what are you doing about Fusco? There's all this shit going down. And he's like, I'm busy right now. Maybe you could do something. And she's like, hey, I'm still a cop. And he kind of is like, hey, look, you have to be the one to judge this if you want to intervene. You have to make a choice here. And I don't know if Reese was trying to like provoke her into this because he thinks she needs to make this choice or something or what, but he kind of lays it on her. And like I said, the fact that she's even willing to listen to what Fusco's done, I mean, Fusco just flat out says, look, I was a dirty cop and I did kill some people. There were drug dealers, but it wasn't legal. I did bad things, and I kind of deserve some comeuppance for it. But I've been doing better this last year and a half with you and Finch and Reese. I've had this purpose. I've been doing these things. You know, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that was the sentiment. He was kind of spilling his guts out to her. And it is too much for her. But as soon as he admits that he did certain things, you know, the killing specifically, she does like say, okay, I can't hear any more of this. I don't want to hear any more of this. And it sort of like stays with her and she has to kind of contemplate it. It's after that she has the phone call with Reese and she's left with this predicament of like, do I get involved here? Do I do something to help him? I really like it. I really like it because she's wrestled with this idea of how much does she want to do things outside the book. And it really brings in this central idea of the whole show is, can people find redemption? Can they change? Can they become good or better or change their ways in some form or fashion? And I think Carter making this choice for Fusco definitely like strengthens a relationship there that was, you know, it's been nice to watch that friendship kind of blossom over the last couple of seasons. But I feel like this was really hard getting out of, you know, putting our neck out there for him in a lot of ways by making this choice. Like, because as we find out, she effectively dug up and moved a dead body for him. That's doing it. Even the act of doing it couldn't have been easy. It would have been gross. And like the whole time she's like, I'm out here in the forest in the middle of the night doing something extremely illegal. Like, you could understand, but she did it, right? And I love the reveal of it as well, because they do the whole thing where they've got Fusco out there, they've got the police dogs, and Simmons is in his ear saying, hey, you're going down for this, blah, blah, blah. And they go out to the grave, and it's like, hey, the dirt's fresh, but there's no body. There was definitely something here, but like it's been moved. And the internal affairs guy's pissed. He thinks Fusco's behind it. He's like, you're a dirty cop, I know it. And Fusco honestly and definitively says, no, I'm not. And I think he's being honest here. He believes that he's not a dirty cop now. And I think the audience, by and large, believes that he's not a dirty cop now, that he has changed his ways. There was definitely a moment here where I was questioning, okay, Carter's like a decent choice for how the body get moved. Part of me thought that it was going to turn out that that Reese and Finch knew about the body as soon as it happened, and Reese already moved it like ages ago. I thought that might be a reveal, but they did a really neat thing where Reese comes back, asks about Fusco, notices that Bear's not there, and then you see as Carter's like saying, hey, Fusco, can you look into this? I need to go home and get some rest. I had a long night, which is your hint that she did it. But then you see her walk away with Bear, and they've both got dirt on their legs to imply that that's how she found the body, is that Bear sniffed it out for her. So yeah, really, no pun intended, I really dug all that. I love the reveal. I always love it when you've got characters in a TV show and like there's a conflicted character who doesn't necessarily feel comfortable or isn't ready to like do something for someone else, but then the show reveals that they did actually do it. They did swoop in and save the day. That's really satisfying when it's done well, and I think this is a really good example of it. Of just being like, just kind of almost like winking at the audience that she did it, rather than just outright. I mean, it doesn't outright say it. Like, it's showing you clear signs here, but it's just, I think a lesser show would have her come over and just say that she did it, right? I think a lesser show would have it in the dialogue. This was visual, and after all, this is a visual medium, and it's more rewarding sometimes to just see that something happened rather than hear it. So, yeah, props for how that was handled. Really enjoyed that throughout. So, the big thing at the end, though, is that Reese is like, hey, we were too late to save this doctor. What the hell? Szymanski, we didn't save him, and we were told far too late for Beecher. That's 3 very recent examples of it just not working, and that he questions, is there something wrong with the machine? What's going on? And Finch doesn't know, but he's like, hey, whatever's whatever we're building down to, it's about to happen. And at the end of the Carter and Fusco scene, we go to the security camera footage like we always do for the interstitials. The screen cuts off and it says no signal, and then we see the entire system shut down, and it just says it's going offline, basically. That's the cliffhanger. The machine has went offline. So it seems like next episode there's going to be no machine running, which does beg a lot of interesting questions. So if they don't get unless the machine just instantly turns back on and something's different, that could be where this goes. It could also be a case of if there's no machine, then there's no number, and if there's no number, then something else has to incite the plot. Something else has to kick things off. And I feel like we have a number of villains who could do that. we have Root, we have Project Decima, we've got HR, we've got Special Counsel. We've got a whole host of villains that might kick things off next episode without a traditional we got a number start to the episode. Which, oh, by the way, the best frenemy forever, that is Elias, also apparently convinced the other dirty cop who was trying to point the fingers at Fusco to recant all of his story. Interesting how that... He's proving to be very useful in prison, I will say. This is a few times now he's been instrumental in helping with things. But he loves those chess games with Finch, so I can't really argue with him. So no, that was a really good episode. It was a really good episode. It was great that it focused on Fusco. It really gave a nice payoff, for now at least, to that plot thread. And it felt like a really great way to end the story with Carter, with her being more of a friend to him than ever, perhaps. And the motivations for her being more open to considering helping him, because she didn't even listen to Beecher once and it ended up with him dead. And her realizing that, well, Fusco might not end up dead, him going to prison is somewhat similar, and that this might just be it. He may just be gone forever now. And she made a choice. And I think what's just happened with Beecher is a great lead into that, to understand why she now feels that way and is willing to do that. I thought that was very well handled. I think it shows they had a plan in mind for this part of the story long ago. That's why we had the whole Beecher plotline in many ways. Obviously, it also helps set up, the HR villains and whatnot, but like it had, and good writers will make something have multiple purposes, but I think this is the most interesting purpose that the whole Beecher plotline served. So good. And I enjoyed the Doctor plot. I think he's a good actor. I think he's a likable older actor. And I was kind of rooting for him to get his day. It was nice that he got his last phone call with his daughter and all that stuff. Yeah, looking forward to the last 2 episodes of the season. Super pumped. But I will see you for that next time. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All that stuff helps out a bunch. And of course, you can support all the content and help keep the lights on over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?